What is up, everyone? It's David. Welcome back to Gem Mint MTG, where we talk about all things related to graded Magic the Gathering cards. Today is an awesome day. We're going to be doing our first ever graded Magic market review. I'm going to be going over real world sales in the marketplace for all different types of graded Magic the Gathering cards. Been working on this for a while. Really excited to share this content with you. Before we get started, I'm going to touch on a couple different things and then we'll get into the graded cards. First off, what this is I'm going to be taking real world sales and analyzing the selling price of those cards based on the near mint average price for that card with an adjustment for the grading fee. This is a sample of how I calculate the multiples for these cards. I went over this in a video called The Graded Multiplier Part 1 and 2. If you haven't checked that out, highly recommend you check it out. It'll give you a lot more context behind what we're doing here. But basically, we're calculating a multiple based on the selling price of that card and what near mint cards sell for that card. And then another thing to take a look at before we get started, this is just a range of expected values based on the data that I've compiled for graded sales in the marketplace. So cards, kind of going from left to right here, we're going to be reviewing PSA 9, Beckett 9, Beckett 9.5s, and PSA 10 sales. So going from left to right, you can see for PSA 9 and Beckett 9s, generally you're in the 1 to 2x range. And then once you get into 9.5s and Gem and PSA 10s, you get into higher multiples in the 2 to 4x range for BGS 9.5s. And then for PSA 10s, like I've talked about before, there's a much wider range of expected values for those cards. Last thing before we get started, if you enjoy this type of content, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to grow this channel because there's not a lot of people talking about graded cards on a regular basis here on YouTube, and I'm trying to change that, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. So please hit that subscribe button. Join in the fun. We're going to be talking about graded cards all the time here on Gem Mint MTG. All right, let's get started, get into this first card. Okay, so this first card that we're going to be reviewing here is Sliver Queen from Stronghold. This is a BGS 9, subgrades 9 on the centering, edges, and corners, and an 8.5 on the surface, which makes it a basic 9. One subgrade lower than the final grade of the card. This card sold for $438. On average, you're going to pay about $300 for the card. So with an adjustment for the grading fee, this sold for a 1.31 multiple, 31% premium for this card based on the near mint price of that card plus the grading fee. I think that Beckett 9s for vintage reserve list Silver Age cards like this, I think they're going to be really strong. I think there's a great market for cards like this. This card definitely fell in the range that we would expect for a card like this. This is actually a really good premium for a Beckett 9, having a 31% premium for that card. Sliver Queen is a really popular card. It's a reserve list card. Everybody knows this card. Ron Spencer artwork. Really cool card. Really happy to see Silver Age cards commanding a good premium for a Beckett 9 like this. Moving on here to our next card, City in a Bottle from Arabian Nights. This card sold for $610. Near mint, you're paying about $550 for this card, which puts it at just a 1.04x multiple. Kind of on the lower range of Beckett 9. I think part of the reason is that you have an 8.5 centering. The card doesn't present that well. It does have edge and centering wear. And it's just, I think for cards from Arabian Nights, the really high-end collectors for cards like this are looking for 9.5s, they're looking for quads, they're looking for PSA 10s, things like that. So just having a basic Beckett 9, you're just not going to get as strong of a premium for a card like this. But still what you would expect to pay for a Beckett 9, a little bit of a premium based on the near mint price of that card. Moving on to the Candelabra of Tawnos. So this card sold for $1,500. Near mint average with the grading fee, you're at about $1,235, which puts it at a multiple of 1.22x, a 22% premium for this card. So this card also had an 8.5 centering, so you can see it's shifted to the right quite a bit, which kind of impacts the just the overall look of the card. But really nice subgrades on the edges and the surface. So 22% premium for this card based on the near mint price of that card. Candelabra of Tawnos is a really cool card, really powerful card, used in multiple old school decks, things like that. So this is a popular card, and not surprised to see it sell for 22% premium. Let's move on to our next card here, the Wheel of Fortune from Unlimited. So this is a quad. This is a 9 quad plus. 9 on the centering, 9 on the edges, 9.5 on the corners and surface. Really stunning card, absolutely beautiful. I took a look at a few high resolution photographs of this card, and it's just really nice to look at. Really presents well. And this card sold for $1,400. The near mint average for this with grading fee is $1,135, which puts it also at a 1.25x multiple. So, in line with what we would expect for Beckett 9. I think that Wheel of Fortune is kind of gaining more and more ground as one of the strongest and most iconic reserve list cards from the base set. I think this card was undervalued for a long time, and I think we're starting to see the price of this card just appreciate more and more. And unlimited copies of this card are getting up even higher. And so not surprised to see a strong 1.25 multiple for Beckett 9. You got to remember, for a Beckett 9, unless it's a really sought after card or something like that, you generally don't get 1.5, 2x. It happens, but generally you're more in the 1 to maybe 1.5 range. But 1.25 is a great premium for his card. You're talking hundreds of dollars that you got extra for this card being a Beckett 9. So nice premium, beautiful card, reserve list. Everybody knows Wheel of Fortune. Really happy to see this one sell for a really nice premium. Let's take a look at another example of a card that didn't command much of a premium at all. This is the Mana Crypt book promo. So this was a 9 quad plus. It sold for $382. This is actually less than you would expect to pay for a near mint card plus the grading fee. Why do I think that is? I think it's a couple things. I think that this card it's not reserve list. This was sold as a book promo, sealed. So there's still a lot of these that exist that are in great condition. Not a card that was very popular to play with for a long time. Before Commander came around, this was not a very popular card to play with, or it wasn't legal to play with because it's so strong. But I think there's just a lot of these that exist that are still in good condition, and even though it was a 9 quad plus, it just doesn't command as strong of a premium because of how many times it's been reprinted and the fact that it was sold as a book promo, and there's a lot of them that exist in really good condition. So that is the Mana Crypt. Moving on to Icy Manipulator from Unlimited. So this is Beckett 9. You can see this is another basic 9 on the centering, corners, and surface, but an 8.5 on the edges. Really nice card, but didn't command too much of a premium. Selling price of $310. Near mint, you're looking at about $250. They're getting harder and harder to find, though. I will say it wasn't easy to find really nice looking copies of this card on the marketplace. These unlimited cards are just getting really hard to find. Just like alphas eventually did, betas eventually did, unlimited is starting to get that way too, even revised. But yeah, 1.08x multiple. The Icy Manipulator, it's not a rare. It's an uncommon. It's one of probably the best uncommons that are available, but it doesn't have a rarity, and it's not that rare of a card because of that. This is an uncommon. There's a lot more copies available, but it does have that beautiful Douglas Schuler original art. I love this card. I've got a few raw copies. Don't have any graded ones, but yeah, a lower multiple on the Icy Manipulator. Let's move on to our next card here. This is going to be the last Beckett 9 that we're looking at today, and it's Metalworker from Urza's Destiny. So this is a 9 basic plus. It's got 9 on the centering, 8.5 on the corners, 9 on the surface, and a 9.5 on the edges. This card sold for $245. Near mint, these are already up to about $150 or so, which puts you at about $190 with an adjustment for the grading fee, and that gives you a 1.29x multiple. So again, for a Beckett 9, this is a nice multiple. This is what you want to see if you're selling a Beckett 9 or buying a Beckett 9. This is a good price for a card like this, a really strong premium for a card like this. I'm really happy to see, just like we saw with the Sliver Queen, that card had a 1.3x multiple. This has a 1.29x multiple. I'm really bullish on Silver Age cards like this, cards from, Mirage Block, Tempest Block, Urza's Block. I'm really bullish on cards like this. I think they're starting to get appreciated more and more, and I'm really happy to see Beckett 9s commanding a strong premium for cards like Sliver Queen, cards like Metalworker. They're commanding stronger premiums than Mana Crypt, than Icy Manipulator, things like that. So really bullish on the Silver Age. Love this card. Talked about it before. I have a few graded copies of this. Really, really cool card. So let's move on. We're going to move on to the PSA 9s. Our first PSA 9 here is a Braingeyser from Revised. So this card sold for over $100 for a Revised Braingeyser. Near mint, you're looking at about $30 for this card, with a grading figure at about $67. This card sold for a 1.53 multiple, 53% premium for this card. A couple things going on here. Like I talked about, I've seen more variance and stronger premiums for PSA 9s over Beckett 9s on average. And I think that another thing about this card to point out is that I think the overall value, the raw dollars of the card for a near mint is a factor here. When you're selling prices $100, it's easier on your wallet to pay a higher multiple for a card that just has a lower overall value. Paying a 1.53 multiple on a much more expensive card like the Wheel of Fortune or the Candelabra of Tawnos, that 1.53 multiple can translate to hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dollars. So I think that lower value cards sometimes can command a stronger premium for them. But I'm really happy to see cards like this getting appreciated more. I'm a big fan of Revised, grading Revised. I've graded a lot of Revised cards. I've talked about it multiple times. I think it's going to get more and more popular as the years go by and people realize that there really aren't as many of these, I think, as people think, to find in truly pristine condition that are actually grade worthy. I know because I've bought a lot of them. I've graded a lot of them. They're not as common as people think. And just really happy to see cards like this commanding a nice premium. And let's take a look at a much more expensive card here with our next PSA 9, the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale. So this card sold for $4,200. Near mint, you're looking for about $4,000. So that puts you at about a 1.04 multiple. Now, what I think is going on here, like I just talked about, like I talked about with the Braingeyser, Braingeyser's a $100 card. This is a $4,000 card. A 1.5 multiple on a card like this would put it at $6,000. That's a real factor. I think that just kind of in general, as you get higher into the just overall raw dollar value of the card, you generally get a lower premium for that card just because, the amount of money that you have to spend for a card like this. But having a $6,000 for a PSA 9 Tabernacle, I don't think is really realistic. And so you see a lower premium for a card like this, but absolutely beautiful card. I love the Tabernacle. It's one of my pet cards. I always liked this card growing up. Love the artwork. It's so insanely powerful. You read the card and you're just like, I can't believe they printed a card that does this. I mean, this to me is a power card just as much as a Mox or a Library of Alexandria or something like that. But yeah, PSA 9 for just a 1.04 multiple, but a $4,200 Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale. Let's take another look. Going back to lower value cards from Revised, This is again a revised reserve list card with iconic artwork that sold for a 1.78x multiple. This revised PSA 9 Vesuvan Doppelganger sold for $142. Near mint, you're looking at about $45 for these. They're getting harder and harder to find in truly gem mint condition. So with the grading fee, you're in about 80 bucks. That's a 1.78x multiple. Very strong premium for a PSA 9. Like I've said, you can get into that 1.5 to 2x range for PSA 9s, and it happens on cards like this. Very iconic card, amazing artwork, reserve list. It's just a beautiful card, and the overall raw cost of the card is a factor here too. If this card was $1,000, you probably wouldn't see a 1.78 multiple for a PSA 9 in general. That's going to be the end of the PSA 9 review. Now we're going to be looking at Beckett 9.5s. All right, here we go. Now we're getting into those gem mint cards. So these are BGS 9.5s that we're going to be looking at. Getting started off here with Winding Canyons from Weatherlight. This card sold for $225. On average, you're going to pay about 40 bucks for this card in near mint condition. Adjustment for the grading fee puts this at about a 3x multiple. So definitely falls in that range of 2.5 to 4x that I talked about for Beckett 9.5s. And I'm really happy to see cards like this from the Silver Age commanding those high end of Beckett premiums for 9.5s. I'm really bullish on Silver Age cards like this. I've talked about it before. Cards from the Mirage block through Urza's Destiny. That's what I consider the Silver Age. Really happy to see cards like this getting more and more popular to grade and commanding strong premiums. This card has excellent subgrades. Look at that, 10 on the centering, 10 on the edges, 9 on the corners, 9.5 on the surface. Absolutely beautiful card. And great to see cards like this selling for a 3x multiple. I'm looking forward to seeing more. I think I'm really bullish on cards like this. I think that these types of cards are going to get more and more popular to collect and to grade, and they're going to command the same kind of premiums that you'd expect for other more vintage cards. Moving on here, so we've got a cool batch of cards here, 9.5 quads. This is a 9.5 quad unlimited Shivan Dragon. You can see all the subgrades are 9.5. That makes it a 9.5 quad. And this card sold for $1,924. On average, you're looking at about $600 for these. They're getting harder and harder to find. I will say it's hard to find, really, really nice copies of these that are still raw that you can grade. So that put it at a 3.25 multiple. Oh, sorry, it looks like we got an issue here with the grading fee. Now, I've talked about 9.5 quads before. There is a really good market for 9.5 quads. They generally command a stronger premium than a basic 9.5, as you would expect. But there's just certain collectors that go after cards like this. And when you have multiple people who are interested in a card like this, you can get those 3, 4, even higher, like we saw. If you saw my video about the 9.5 quad City in a Bottle, you can get some crazy high multiples for 9.5 quads because there's collectors that go after those cards in particular. And Shivan Dragon, it's not a reserve list card, but it's such an iconic card. The artwork, the playability, everybody knows this card. And this example is it's a stunning card to look at. I think that cards like this are going to continue to grow in price. I wouldn't be surprised if in 3-5 years we look back at paying less than $2,000 for a 9.5 quad unlimited Shivan Dragon. Seems like a steal. Royal Assassin from Unlimited. So this card sold for $1,151. This is another 9.5 quad. Near mint, you're looking about $250. So with an adjustment for the grading fee, this is over a 4x multiple, $1,151 for a Royal Assassin from Unlimited. But again, it's an iconic Unlimited rare in absolutely pristine condition, 9.5 quad. There's a great market for these, so not surprised to see it command a really nice premium like this. These 9.5 quads generally are in that 3 to 4x range, or sometimes even higher. So those are the three Beckett 9.5s. Now we're going to move on to PSA 10s. We got a few PSA 10s here to look at. All right, so our first PSA 10 here is a power artifact from Antiquities. This card sold for $765 with the near mint price with the grading fee of $360. That puts it at a 2.13 multiple. So on the lower end of what you would expect for a PSA 10, but I think there's a couple things at play here. So Power Artifact is not the highest rarity in the Antiquities set, like a card like Mishra's Workshop or the Candelabra of Tawnos. So I think in general, cards that are of an uncommon rarity, generally command less of a premium than truly rare cards. Also, I think this card, while it is popular, it's a little bit more of a niche card. So not too surprised to see a PSA 10 sell for a lower multiple, but I mean, we're still talking almost $800 for a power artifact. Crazy. Moving on to Tetravis. So this PSA 10 from Antiquities sold for $468. Near mint, these are running about $80 with an adjustment for the grading fee. That puts you at a 4.07 multiple. Really nice, strong multiple for this PSA 10. Not surprised, it is a rare, marked in artwork, really iconic card. And I think this falls in that upper range of what you would expect to pay for a PSA 10 in that 2.5 to 4x range. Next card here is Sorceress Queen from Arabian Nights. This PSA 10 sold for $1,035 for a Sorceress Queen. Crazy. Near mint, these are running about $250 with an adjustment for the grading fee. That puts you at a 3.63 multiple. So once again, falls in that range of 2.5 to 4x that we would expect for a PSA 10. I think that these Arabian Nights cards are very rare. They're hard to find in a high grade. And even though Sorceress Queen has been reprinted a bunch of times, it's not a reserve list card or anything, you still get a really strong multiple for a PSA 10 like this. Really beautiful card, really iconic card. City in a Bottle from PSA 10. This is our next card. This card sold for $2,392. With the grading fee, you're looking at a 4x multiple. So once again, falls in that upper range of what you'd expect for a PSA 10. A couple of things that I want to talk about here with this card in particular. We did see a Beckett 9 that sold for, not much of a premium. And I also, like I mentioned before, I did a video on this card for a Beckett 9.5 quad that sold for over $4,000. It was $4,200 for this exact same card in a 9.5 quad. Now, the reason that I think that happened is that there are a lot of collectors, especially high-end collectors, that go after 9.5 quads in particular. And especially from sets like Arabian Nights, those cards can command an extremely high premium. The multiple on that card was over 7x for the same card. And I think that it kind of shows you that I think there's a really even stronger market for 9.5 quads than PSA 10s. A lot of PSA 10s, the same card 9.5, the PSA 10 will sell higher. But when you get into specific cards from specific sets that, certain collectors really go after, those 9.5 quads, I think, will command a stronger premium for the equivalent card in a PSA 10 grade. So I was actually kind of surprised to see this PSA 10 City in a Bottle not sell for more. I mean, it's still almost $2,400 for a City in a Bottle, but it's not over $4,000, and I think that just shows how strong the market is for BGS 9.5 quads from Arabian Nights in particular. All right, and our last PSA 10, had to go over this one. Alpha Island V2 PSA 10 that sold for over $1,000 for a basic land. This is my favorite island artwork. I absolutely love this art, the floating island. So cool. But on average, these are about $100 now. These alpha basics are getting expensive, and they're really hard to find in a high grade. You have to remember, even fresh from the pack, alpha cards have a lot of issues with centering, with the corners, with the edges. They're just finding PSA 10 alpha cards is really hard, and they command a really strong premium, even for something like a basic land. So the multiple on this was 7.78x. Absolutely stunning. This is that upper echelon range of PSA 10s that I talked about. In the beginning of the video, I mentioned, like, and when we looked at the graph, you can see the expected premium for PSA 10 can be anywhere from 2 to up to 7, 8x in this example. And in the end, it comes down to the card, and it comes down to the collectors of that card and what they're willing to pay. And cards like this from Alpha in PSA 10 condition, they command a really strong premium, and that applies even to cards like this that are basic lands. So not surprised to see, a really high multiple on this card, but it's still crazy to see a basic land that sells for $1,000. And that's the last card that we're going to go through today. Let's wrap this video up. All right, well, that's the first episode of the Graded Magic Market Review. Thank you so much for joining. I was really excited to bring you this content. I've been working on this for a while, and I'm really happy to do videos like this in the future. So if you're not already a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. Join in the fun. I'm going to be talking about graded cards all the time here on Gen Mint MTG, and I'd really love for you to be a part of it. I think that the graded Magic marketplace is growing. I think there's new collectors joining every day. I think there's more and more people that are starting to appreciate how rare these cards are to find in really gem mint condition. And I think that more and more people are grading the copies that they can find. And there's more and more collectors going after these cards in general. So really, really happy to bring you this type of content, this type of data, this type of analysis. If you're one of those crazy people who likes their cardboard wrapped in plastic, I'm really happy to see you here and happy to go over this stuff with you. Additionally, if you ever want to talk shop, or you ever have any ideas for content, or you want to talk about cards that you're looking at buying or selling, I put my email in the description of all the videos. Feel free to shoot me an email to talk shop. Always happy to do that with you all. I have a number of people that I communicate with that way. Always happy to take things to a more personal level with everybody here. Really like talking with you all about this kind of stuff. I'm happy to see that there is genuine interest in graded cards, and that interest is growing. And so always happy to communicate with you on a more personal level like that. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. I'll try to bring another market review. I'm going to try to do this monthly. Can't promise it can be any more often than that. This does take a long time for me to prepare, but I'm going to try to do these monthly for the entire year of 2022. So until next time, thank you. Have a great one.